Okay, after thinking about this a bit, I think it would be okay, and the simplest thing to do would be to go ahead and stitch the front panel in to the bag, and then make holes through both the bag and the leather. That'll be the most quickest and simple way. The way I was thinking was actually creating the tassels, feeding them through, and then stitching around it, but that would be a little bit too much. But again, I'm not sure if that's what the maker did, and so there's no holes in the bag itself. So I'm not sure which way direction they went. I'm gonna go with the simplest one. So essentially, let's see, this is the back. This would represent the front. And this would go, just make sure the holes, because I can see my holes here, and here the holes would go there. And then I would here, and here is where I would go ahead and punch new holes in here, and then feed the tassel and the adjoining loop, which is actually the connector for the button. So it's kind of like you draw it tight, you pull it down and draw it tight. So that makes sense. Because I've made a sporran before, I just can't find it. So I kind of did something similar, except I did it on the inside. Anyhow, that's our plan of attack. So for these pieces here, what I'm gonna have to do is, when we get to that stage, I'm gonna rubber cement these down onto our panels. That way it'll be easier for me to stitch and everything kind of stays together. Rubber cement isn't that permanent, so if I need to make adjustments or change out the panels or change out the bag, you know, I can undo the stitching and kind of pull up the rubber cement with very little damage between both pieces. So rubber cement is often used in leather work to at least hold pieces together, but because you can't really pin them like you would do fabric. So we're going to punch the holes for the drawstrings, and then we're going to attach our panels. This is the front, and then we're going to attach the lid to the back, and then we're gonna stitch them in. And again, there's a center line here I need to match this up with, and that's how it's gonna, that would be and then stitch through the bag panel, the back panel, and stitch through the bag of the front panel like that. Yeah. So a little bit of work yet still before we really start to see things come to fruition, but this looked like it's like a real intermediate piece. You know, you kind of have, well, I would say it's kind of advanced, a higher intermediate piece, because you really gotta know what you're doing and as far as how things fit together and in which order. So here we go. I have punched with my hole punch some holes for the stitching, and I actually I probably messed myself up by making them too close apart. I didn't have to do that. They could have been a little wider apart, because it's just stitching into it would have tacked down just as well with, you know, just wider spacing. But oh well, it's too late now. Anyhow, the next step to this will be to align this properly on the back of the bag here. But you know, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, we can do this after the fact, because there's a stitch line to the bag, but that's got to happen after we put a hem into the top of the bag here. But at any rate, this is, you know, at least we can start on the front. The back will be handled differently, so we can start on the front here, and I'll have to align the holes up, and then I can tack this down with some rubber cement, so we're gonna line this up. I'm gonna take my rubber cement, and I've done the same with the front panel. Put some holes so I don't have to use an awl every time. I kind of cheated, but not really. I just made it faster for myself using my hole punch. So we're gonna tack this down, which is essentially pinning it onto our body of our fabric here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna saddle stitch this in on this piece here. So yeah, I mean, as we're starting to put it together, but this is the plan of attack. We need to get our leather, our thicker leather components onto the softer leather components, and then we'll sew. Then we'll sew the two sides. We'll put the hem in. No, we'll sew all three pieces together. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll put the hem in, and then we will add our tassels. So that's kind of, and we add our tassels, and then we have yet to make the belt, which is relatively easy considering what we've had to do in the past. Right now, the past not even really 24 hours. So okay, so right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my punches in those holes here, and I'm gonna use my smallest hole punch right here just to get the hole started. I can always again take a chopstick or some sort of round shim and make the hole wider. The leather will stretch, but I kind of want to get it started to get some to help align the front panel. So this is the front part of the bag here, and I can just go in and just punch it. Now there's a reason why I did the holes in the panel first, and the reason why, as you can see, I only have so much of a depth for my hole punch. So if I had tacked this down and then did all my punching throughout the whole entire piece, sometimes they don't align properly. It would have just been a whole mess. So this has kind of got a shallow mouth to it, so it's easier for me sometimes. And then if I have to go in deep, sometimes I'm able to fold it, but I have to be careful when I do that so I don't make an extra hole where I don't need to. But this is pretty flexible, otherwise I would use an awl to do it. So I just want to get my holes in. I'll probably just go in deep for the first one here, and then for the second one like that. So now we have our holes, and since we have our holes all set, and I know I need to, and you may not be able to see this on camera, but now I can take this, because these two holes are supposed to align with the two holes here in the bag. So I'm gonna make sure those holes are aligned, and then we're gonna rubber cement this down. That way I don't really have to worry about a center line like we talked about with the back piece, because there's 2 points here. I've already marked out. The center line will be, will lay itself out. Okay, so again, I'm taking these, and I can take a chopstick or a tapered round tool, and this will help make the holes a little bigger, like that. And then it'll be easier for me to align these top holes, which should line up. And they do. It's just a little hard to see. Yep, they line up. So what I want to do now is I'm gonna get some newspaper, get my rubber cement, and we're gonna carefully tack this down. Then I'm gonna take my marble slab and or some heavy books and sit it down, and then that'll kind of pin it together real nicely, and then we can start stitching. Alright, so here's my rubber cement here. Mix it up. And of course, you know, protect your surface with some newspaper or something like that, because then, you know, it'll get tacky for a while, so it's best to change it out with another sheet of newspaper. And I want to get to the edges for sure. I really want the edges to tack down where we're going to be stitching. You can kind of do an X if you want, or I might just saturate the whole side, just so we have nice contact and there's no slippage. Alright, so next, carefully remove that. And then we'll take our leather piece, our front part of our bag. I'm just double checking. It's got 4 holes in the front on this pattern. And I want to carefully line up the holes. Then I can tack it down. Now, if some of the rubber cement gets outside of the space, it's easy to wipe it off. There's even a rubber cement eraser. I don't have one, but it's easy to get rid of it by just rubbing it off. It's, again, that's why it's rubber. But it's not completely permanent. It's just to temporarily pin this down. So I'm gonna get a weight and put the weight on this, and then take a little break. We'll come back and we'll start doing some stitching. Okay, so we've tacked this down, made sure the holes are lined up, and then I'm gonna take my heavy marble slab here, and all we're gonna do is just set it down, and it'll be a nice even kind of pressure, and everything should tack down. It won't have to be for too long, just to set it in place. And then what we'll do next is we'll make a couple of stitches in here just to lock it in, so it doesn't move in case the rubber cement wants to shift on us, or it's not as tacky as we would have liked to have made it. And then we can leave those stitches in or take them out. They're just extra stitches just to kind of pin it in place. But this is kind of the first step. Yeah, leather work is fun, but you do have to think through the process a little bit. And again, I'm trying to explain this as I go, otherwise, you know, I probably might have been able to finish this yesterday in probably about maybe 8 hours or so. And so it's been about 20 minutes or so. So we're just gonna lift this up. And we can see this is pretty much almost one piece now. All right. But, you know, still don't trust it, because through the process of sewing it, I'm just gonna have to manipulate things, so it may slip a little bit. So what we will do is I will tack this at the corners, at the angles, and then maybe tack it in the center, and then we'll just do some saddle stitching. That should hold everything in place, and then we should be good to go.